5 days on, 2 days off, every week of your working life. You never agreed to this. Nobody put it to a vote. There's no law of nature that says a week should break into 5 and 2. The number could just as easily have been 6 and 1 or 4 and 3. Somebody decided, and they decided surprisingly recently. The arrangement you're living inside is younger than the automobile, younger than the airplane, younger than your great-grandparents. Most people, if they've heard any version of this story, have heard that Henry Ford invented the weekend. That's not wrong exactly, but Ford arrived near the end of the story, not the beginning. The first people to invent the weekend weren't factory owners being generous. They were workers, and they did it by simply not showing up. Start with what the week actually looked like before anyone changed it. 6 days of work. Sunday off, not as rest exactly, but as the Christian day of worship, protected by custom and often by law. That was the whole structure, and it had been the whole structure for centuries. The hours were not 8. In the mid-19th century, factory work commonly ran 12, 14, sometimes 16 hours a day, 6 days a week. Even at Ford's own plants, decades later and considered progressive at the time, the standard was 8 hours a day, 6 days, 48 hours a week, and that was the good version. So the total gap between then and now isn't 1 day off. It's roughly 100 hours a week collapsing into 40 over about a century. And here's what's easy to miss. For most of that history, nobody in charge had any intention of shortening it. Long hours weren't seen as a problem to be solved. They were seen as the natural cost of running an economy, which raises the question the rest of this video is about. If no employer wanted to give up a day and no government was going to force it for another century, how did the second day off ever happen at all? Quick thing, this channel does one of these a week. The hidden history behind ordinary stuff. Subscribing takes 2 seconds and helps a lot. The answer starts with something that had no official existence at all. Craft workers in Britain called it Saint Monday. It wasn't a real saint's day. It wasn't a holiday. It was a joke name for a habit. Workers, particularly skilled craftsmen who controlled their own pace, simply did not come in on Monday. The tradition goes back to at least the 17th century. It shows up in Benjamin Franklin's Autobiography, writing about his time in a London printing house as a young man. He notes that he never took a Saint Monday, and that this reliability is exactly what recommended him to his master, which tells you everything. It was common enough that not doing it made you stand out. The mechanics were simple. Payday was Saturday, which meant Sunday was the one day a worker had both money and freedom at the same time, and Sunday was for church. So the drinking and socializing and general recovery spilled into Monday. Enough workers took Monday that there was company to be had, which made taking Monday more appealing, which made more workers take it. For employers, this was maddening. You cannot run a factory when an unpredictable share of your workforce is absent on the same unpredictable day, and you have no way to plan around it. But here's the thing they eventually understood. They couldn't stop it. Not with fines, not with threats. Skilled workers had leverage, and they were using it, so they did something else. Picture a workshop in the industrial north of England, early 1800s. Monday morning. The machines are running, some of the benches are occupied, and a noticeable share are not because the men who work them are elsewhere, and everybody knows where, and everybody knows they'll be back Tuesday, more or less functional. The owner is standing there doing arithmetic. He's paying for a building that's running at partial capacity 1 day in 6. He can't fire them. Skilled hands are hard to replace. He can't fine them into compliance. It's been tried. What he can do is make an offer. What if the workers got Saturday afternoon off officially, on the schedule, planned for in exchange for showing up Monday morning, on time, sober, and ready to work? That's the trade. That's where the weekend comes from. This is the part that gets left out of the Henry Ford version. The modern weekend first took shape in the industrial north of Britain in the early 19th century, and it began as a voluntary arrangement between factory owners and workers. The Saturday half-holiday, with work ending around 2 in the afternoon on the understanding that staff would then turn up sober and refreshed on Monday morning. Read that again, because the logic is backwards from how we tell it now. The weekend wasn't a gift handed down to workers. It was employers buying back Monday by selling Saturday afternoon. The workers had already taken a day. The negotiation was only ever about which day and whether it would be scheduled or stolen. And once Saturday afternoon existed as a legitimate planned block of free time, something changed that nobody had designed. That half day became a place where things could be put: sport, shopping, excursions, family time. Saturday afternoon got an identity, and an institution with an identity is very hard to take back. The only real question left was how far into Saturday it would grow. From there, the rest of the story is the half day expanding into a full one. The first known 5-day workweek in the United States showed up in 1908 at a New England spinning mill, and not for any of the reasons you'd guess. The mill had a large number of Jewish workers who observed the Sabbath from sundown Friday to sundown Saturday. Rather than lose them, the mill closed Saturday entirely. Add the Christian Sunday, and you have 2 days off assembled almost by accident out of 2 different religions. Then, in 1922, Ford Motor Company announced it was moving to 5 days. Edsel Ford, Henry's son and the company president, told the New York Times, "Every man needs more than 1 day a week for rest and recreation." The policy took effect on May 1st, 1,926 48 hours down to 40, with no cut in pay. But Ford's reasoning wasn't only about rest, and he was fairly open about that. His whole economic model, later called Fordism, depended on mass production being matched by mass consumption. Somebody had to buy all those cars. A worker with money and no time is useless to that system. Ford needed his workers rested, paid, and crucially, free during business hours. The weekend wasn't just time to recover, it was time to shop. The 5-day week became American law with the Fair Labor Standards Act of 1938. Now, 3 things worth being straight about. That 1,908 mill wasn't the breakthrough it sounds like. Management insisted on keeping the same output, so the lost Saturday hours were just redistributed into the other 5 days. 2 days off, same total work, and the historical record on it is thin. A lot of the detail simply wasn't preserved. Second, Ford wasn't acting out of kindness, and the trade wasn't free. Ford himself acknowledged he expected the same output in less time. And third, the most important one, giving Ford the credit erases about a century of people who fought for this and paid badly for it. Unions organized, struck, were beaten, blacklisted, and in some cases killed, demanding exactly what Ford later granted and got remembered for. The Amalgamated Clothing Workers of America won a 5-day week by union demand in 1929. So the real answer to where your weekend came from is not a person. It's a 100-year negotiation in which workers took time first. Employers formalized it to control it, and the law finally caught up decades later. Which means the thing worth noticing is this: the 5-day week was never a natural law. It was a settlement between people with different amounts of power, using the technology and the economy of the 1920s. Every part of that has changed since. The structure you work inside was built by people who are all dead now to solve problems that mostly no longer exist. It felt permanent to them too. If you got something out of this channel does one of these a week. The hidden history of the things you never think twice about. See you in the next one.